Anyone recognize the number 401-258-7958?
Yes, I believe that's Bill. Han.
Bill, is that you, 401?
I believe that's
That's
Kate.
Kate.
Oh, hey, Kate, sorry.
Bill will be calling in.
And who else? I think everyone else, I recognize everyone else. 617.
All right, everybody.
617-851, is that Bill?
Yes.
Yeah, that's me.
All right.
All right, we'll start in half a minute. Addendum. On February 15th, 2022, Governor Baker signed into law a new session law extending certain COVID-19 related measures. The new law, Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, includes an extension until July 15th of 2022 of the remote learning meeting provisions of the governor's March 12, 2020 executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. Citizens with a question or comment can email mwatali@walpole.k12.ma.us or middleschoolproject@walpole.k12.ma.us. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of the meeting minutes for March 29th, 2022. Does anybody have any questions about the meeting minutes? If not, I would take a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
So moved.
I have a motion from Ms. Gallivan. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Fisher. And let me pull the committee. Dr. Goff,
Yes.
Mr. Jeffrey Fisher.
I'm going to abstain. I haven't had a chance to review them.
Okay, very good. Jack Fisher,
Yes.
Nancy Gallivan, Ms. Gallivan,
Yes.
Mr. Frisha,
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton,
Yes.
Mr. Senek,
Yes.
Mr. Conroy,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Dr. Hahn,
Yes.
and did I miss anybody? And I vote yes, it is a vote. With that, I believe we'll turn it over to Jen and or Brian for a presentation on the construction manager at risk selection subcommittee recommendations.
Yep, so we've gone over these items already, and just quickly on the update on schedule that we are still on schedule. There's no change. And the for the selection process for the CM at risk firms that we got finished the interview, and the subcommittee had done their tally, and there was a small mistake in the previous one that Shamit's total points is 13. So this is the ranking for the there are 4 different areas, and then they're ranked 1 through 4. And that, as you can see, that that Fontaine is clearly the front runner, and so the subcommittee is asking for the full Walpole School Building Committee to recommend that to the Board of Selectmen that to start the negotiation with Fontaine as the CM at risk firm. And if that is not successful, then it will go on to the second ranking firm, which will be the WT Rich, and then to the third ranking, which will be Beacon or Shamet at that point.
Does anybody have any questions or comments? I don't know if Jen or Brian, you want to explain the process to the whole committee?
Yeah.
Or
Sure. Each firm had submitted a statement of qualification, and that's a package that which they submitted, which is the first item on the list here. And then that is the which that's the one that the committee shortlisted 4 firms, which is these 4 firms. And at that point, that a request for proposal went out to these 4 firms, and then the request for proposal has the technical portion, which is asking them about that, how they would approach the project and who they propose to use. And then they also included references and credit check, not credit, and their finance reference, and as well as they are required to submit a bond equal to 110% of the construction value, and as well as DCAM statement, etc. And so that is what makes up the technical portion. And then each firm is then being reviewed, scored according to those different areas. And then in the RFP, it also required that each firm to submit a fee proposal for both the pre-construction portion of the project, as well as for the entire project, should they be awarded the project, in terms of the general condition, and general requirement, insurance, bond, and as well as their proposed profit and fee, and a CM, construction manager at risk's contingency that they will propose to move forward with the project. And we equalize everybody's proposal, and that Bacon was the lowest, has the lowest fee, followed by Fontaine, but was only a very small margin. And then W.T. Rich and Sharma are behind. And then the interview was conducted with all 4 firms, and the committee member attended the interview or watched it on the recording. And then and after a discussion session, that the Fontaine was voted as the first ranking, was followed by Rich as a second, and was Sharma as the third, and Bacon as the fourth. And so that's and so that, as you can see, that pretty much Fontaine was able to be the first, with only the exception of the fee proposal that they came in second. And so that is how the ranking is tally up.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Mark, can I just ask?
Yes,
I
Nancy,
think,
right ahead.
Chin, I think you said that in the fee proposal, Fontaine was not too far behind Bacon as far as the
Yes.
-- 1 choice. Is that right?
That's correct. They were only, when you add it together, that, and then if you equalize Bacon's, which was missing, they were missing an insurance item in there, they would be almost dead on. But otherwise they were about almost $100,000 apart, if I remember correctly.
And
So
what
there's
about,
very, very minimum difference between the 2 firms for the entire project, by the way.
thank you. And what about the other 2? Was that a large range, or were they all 4 relatively tightly packed?
So the Bacon and Fontaine were very, very close. And then W.T. Rich is somewhere between 500,000 to 600,000 higher than Fontaine. And Sharma was almost $1.2 million higher than Fontaine and Bacon.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Nancy, I'll add to that. All the firms, again, it's kind of an equation of what they carry for a projected their general conditions cost, which is based on their staffing that they're proposing to provide for the duration of the project, and the duration kind of shifts a little bit based on what they think their schedule might look like for the project. It also varies a little bit based on what they're presenting as a percentage for CM fee, and that's anywhere from that around 2% of the cost of construction. Also, their CM contingency, again, typically around 2% of construction. All 4 firms were actually under budget for what we carried for the CM fees and general conditions in the last estimate, which is a great starting place. Fontaine and Bacon were approaching almost 2 million under budget for what we had carried. But those are all negotiated numbers, and we still have to kind of finalize those numbers with them. But overall, all 4 were under what we carried for budget, and potential to pick up some decent savings with the CM, which will also factor in the next time we kind of go through the value engineering exercise. There might be a possibility to recapture some of that, but right now I think we're in a pretty good spot.
Awesome, thank you.
Chin or Brian, could I ask a question? In
Please.
your experience, does sometimes the bid sort of speak to how much they want this project as well? If you know what I mean?
You mean the fee as, I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Correct,
the
their
entire-
fee. Does
Yeah.
their fee kind of speak to how well this project fits into their overall corporate schedule? I don't know. I'm asking.
It's harder for me to answer, to say that I have conclusive evidence to say, to make a judgment call on that, but I can definitely tell you, and then I think the subcommittee member would agree with me that during the interview, Fontaine has shown substantially more interest to this project. They have gone through more details than any other firms in the shortlist. They gone through a lot of details. They thought about it. They even have negotiated a tentative deal for contractor parking during construction, much way beyond the other firms had done. So that they during the interview they have demonstrated that they are extremely interested in this project.
Thanks, Chin. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? So hearing none, I would entertain a motion to recommend Fontaine as the CM at risk to the Board of Selectmen for approval.
Yeah, Mark, I'd entertain that motion.
All right, very good. That is Jeff Fisher, am I correct?
Yeah, I actually wrote it out if you want.
All right, very good. If you could, please.
I'd like to make a motion to request the select board and town administration to negotiate a contract to procure Fontaine Brothers, Inc. As the construction manager at risk for the duration of the Walpole Middle School building project.
All right, very good. It is a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Mr. Jack Fisher. Let me poll the committee. If I could for a moment here, scroll to the top. Mr. Jeffrey Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Jack Fisher,
Yes.
Ms. Gallivan,
Yes,
Mr. Barrett,
Yes.
Mr. Frisha,
Yes.
Dr. Goff,
yes,
Mr. Senek,
Yes.
Mr. Conroy,
Yes.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes.
Ms. Gallivan.
yes again.
I'm sorry, I got you twice, and I vote yes. It is a vote. Thank you.
Mark,
So-
you missed me.
I'm sorry.
Mark.
Mr. Hahn, Dr. Hahn, please,
Yeah, that's a yes for me.
and Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Right, did I miss anybody else? All right, it is a vote. So our next item is item 6. We'll turn it over to TAP-A, the review of the construction documents and the phasing, et cetera.
Thanks, Mark. So I'm briefly going to go through kind of our CD work plan moving forward, kind of the brief, kind of a bird's eye view of what we've kind of completed and what our schedule is moving forward. This will kind of shift a little bit here and there once we start talking with the CM a little bit more and when they're on board. Primarily, the big interest will be the ER1 package and how they feel it fits into the schedule. But the DD submission to the MSBA went out yesterday. They confirmed receipt of that, and they did a brief cursory review, and everything seems to be there at this point. So they will continue to do their more thorough review. We'll be sending over printed documents to them as well. They should be receiving them later on this week, and the town will receive their copies as well. And the MSBA will do their submission and get any review comments back to us, and we will, again, and along with Compass, look at those review comments and provide comments back similar to what we just did for the submission now during the next submission for the 60% MSBA submission. So moving forward, everything in grays we've completed so far for schematic design in DD. We're now moving on to construction documents, which you can see here. Our next submission would be ER1, which is tentatively scheduled for May 27th. You can see this down here. Again, that will be the enabling package, getting the new roadways in, and get everything set up before the students return back to the school in the fall. The submission after that would be the 60% CD estimate set, which is up here. That is tentatively scheduled for 7/1. And then we'll have the MSBA 60% MSBA submission on 7/29. Moving on from that, after that, we have the 90% cost estimate. That submission is tentatively scheduled for 10/7. And at that same time, we'll have ER2, which will be concrete and steel package, will be going out at the same time as the 90% estimate goes out on 10/7. Following that, on 11/2, we have the 90% MSBA submission. And then finally, moving on after that, we have the 100% bid documents going out on 12/16. Any questions moving forward on the work plan for construction documents? Okay, moving on, we'll kind of look forward to our 3-week look ahead. As we talked about earlier, we completed the submission of the MSBA yesterday. We had our final CM selection meeting as just discussed earlier. TAP A is going to start. We've started already incorporating all the VE items into the documents that were previously approved. And we're going to continue to update our documents and try to get some updated renderings to you guys with all the VE changes so you guys can see what the building looks like with some of the material changes that happened on the outside. So as we continue to update the VE items, we will continue to update our exterior elevations and renderings and get them to you guys for review. We also are submitting the land disturbance permit. Our civil engineer is submitting that. He said it'll either be done by tomorrow or Thursday at the latest. Moving on to the next week, again, we continue to incorporate the VE items and also working with our consultant coordination to get them and coordinate their VE items and well, and also continuing the detailing for the rest of the CDs for getting our window details and storefront details and everything that needs to continue to develop now that we're into construction documents. We have the next scheduled working group meeting for the 14th. After that week, we move on to school vacation week. There's no building committee meeting for that week that we're aware of at this point, since most people are going to be out on vacation based on the discussion with the working group, but we can have further discussion after this to confirm that that is indeed true. We should be wrapping up the rest of the VE items that last week. Again, we'll start on the renderings to get something to you and for the working group to look at on the 28th is our goal moving forward from there. We'll continue with the detailing of the documents. And then moving forward, again, we're going to start our focus on the ER1 package. We're going to try to set up another security meeting for everybody to get our security consultant and also our hardware consultant to get a final discussion so we get any outstanding items worked out that we can then incorporate into the construction documents. And then based on the land disturbance permit that's submitted, the first meeting that could take place on that would be on the 27th. We've got another working group meeting on the 28th. And then we have our monthly meeting with the building inspector on the last Friday of the month. Any questions moving forward for the 3-week look ahead?
Just to add one thing is that the land disturbance permit would require the Conservation Commission to do a third-party review. So that's why we're submitting it right now, so that we will have the the review process and permitting process completed in time for the start of the early the enabling phase work this
ER1,
summer,
yep.
as soon as the school is finished at the last day.
I have a
Thanks,
Also
question.
add-
I have a
Also add to
question.
that, we're trying to bring on the, assuming that the CM is approved by the select board, we'll try to bring them on to the next working group to get up to speed and then begin working on planning the early release package enabling work, working with TAP A's design team. Fontaine also indicated that they would, they had actually done a draft DD estimate, so we're going to be reviewing the costs with them compared to the estimates that we have, and then continue to work through the next couple weeks, getting the initial phasing sequencings in place, and then come back to this committee. We can talk about when the next meeting might be, and we'll introduce the CM team to this committee. Most likely, looks like it'll be the first meeting in May, or else if we want to have one on the 26th, we just need to talk through the logistics of the next meeting.
Jack, you had a question, I believe?
Yes, Brian, let's not forget the site plan approval. I'm not pushing my board, but we've done this on every school project. And what you certainly don't want to have is neighbors who are irate that could file a lawsuit because we're doing something they didn't know about or they weren't party to. So keep that in mind.
Understood.
Hmm?
Understood.
When would you be ready to do that?
That's something we're coordinating with the submission after the Conservation Commission.
Well, conservation's not gonna affect it anyway, but I'm just saying, before you put out the enabling package, or at least the early site, you just want to make sure you got that covered. I'm talking to people, what's it, Grasshopper?
Yeah.
They're the biggest ones affected, and they may want to have a say or see what's going on or what you've done. And once the neighbors come and see, then, but you don't want to shut them out because we could run the risk of throwing a lawsuit on that. I think one night when I was talking to Matt, he told me about Millis. It was like a ping pong ball back and forth. So we don't want to run into that.
Thanks, Jack. Anybody else have any questions or comments? So I think the next thing we need to do is nail down when our next meeting might be. We tentatively had it scheduled for the week of school vacation, but there's nothing imperative for that week, and a number of people can't make it, including myself. So we need to kind of nail down a next date. So Chin or Brian, did you mention the week after? I don't know if the committee feels is it, or I think we really need to have something on the agenda. So we don't want to meet just for the sake of meeting. Will the week after work or the week after that?
We'll definitely have something for the agenda. The 26th would be the following Tuesday. I mean, the goal would be get the CM team in, introduce everyone, also step through the preliminary thoughts around the early release packages. Because the CMs did actually have some interesting ideas about potentially breaking up or rearranging some of that summer works, using use of a different temporary entrance. I mean, there's some things that we want to work through with them and TAP-A's team to see if they're feasible. And then we can present that to the committee. So the 26th, we would definitely have something to talk about. We'd also have admin items to go through, or you could get into the first week in May. In my opinion, it might be better to do it on the 26th.
Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, and I know we talked about there being a select board meeting the night of the 26th, and aside from introducing the CM firm, there not being much business for the committee to take up until that first week in May anyway. So if there is no substantive action items necessary, I'd say let's push to that first week in May.
Okay, that's fine.
Any disagreement with the first week in May?
When is the finance committee public hearing for a town meeting?
It is
The,
Monday, the
second.
2nd.
Okay, and this would be Tuesday, the 3rd we're talking about, correct?
That's correct.
Any questions or comments about Tuesday the 3rd? So we'll make Tuesday the 3rd the next meeting then, I guess. Does anybody have any final questions or comments?
I do have a quick one.
Yeah. Right ahead, Jack.
Brian. Look at the screen, Brian.
I was writing down the date.
Yeah, I know. Since Fontaine and I forget who the other one was, Rich, they talked about making that other access. Would that make
Yes.
sense to leave it permanent? Because if you came in off of East Street, you take the right, they exit to the right. I mean, would that make sense?
We had looked at that earlier, and I think there was concern over the site distance on that East Street curve as a permanent entrance.
But I'm saying, no, you can only take a right-hand turn into there.
So
Oh.
Jack, I think we should, I had a conversation with Matt earlier today. Is if that option is to be entertained, we need to, I would like to have the traffic engineer take a closer look to see how we can make, how we can make it work in that location. And
Well,
certainly that,
what I'm saying is it's only one way in coming off of East Street at the end, when we're all done here.
I think that I hear you, Jack, and I would like to have the design team with their consultant, with their traffic engineer to review how with the traffic pattern, with that change, would that work? And then sort of have them take a look at it, and if that makes sense, we would make sure that the appropriate intersection is designed.
Yeah, the only reason I'm bringing it up is it seems to be a nice little U, and with school buses, you always want everybody to exit to the right, and just something to look at. And the other thing is, if we're gonna put temporary, it doesn't cost that much more to finalize it. So I'd hate to lose
Understood.
something. Thank you.
Good point, Jack. Any other final questions or comments? All right, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Gallivan. Do I have a second, Mr. Fisher?
Yep.
Second from Jeffrey Fisher. Let me poll the committee here if I could. Mr. Conroy. We'll get back to you. Ms. Gallivan.
Yes.
Mr. Fisher.
Yes.
Ms. Hamilton.
Yes.
Mr. Jack Fisher.
Yes.
Dr. Goff.
yes.
Mr. Senek.
Yes.
Mr. Anderson. Mr. Barrett.
Yes.
Dr. Hahn.
Yes.
Dr. Goff.
Yes.
And I vote yes. Did I miss anybody?
Yes, you missed me, but yes.
I'm sorry, Mr. Jeffrey Fisher.
No worries.
Very good.
Yeah, I voted, but I was muted, so.
Very good. So it is a vote. Thank you, everybody, and have a good night now.